Be'ezrat Hashem, Naaseh v'Natzliach. I want to welcome you to another session of our PARASHAT Shavua class. This week's parasha is PARASHAT Vayeshev. This week's class is YAKOV AVINU dedicated his life to two things. It's very interesting what those two things are going to be as we go into depth. Before we get started, I'd like to give some honorable mentions and dedications to the following people. Yitbarach Shemo Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Be'ezrat Hashem, this class will be in honor of Jacqueline Bat Alia and Tova Shindel Bat Arta. Also to the Ilui Nishmat of David ben Zohara, Yaniv ben Rina, Michel ben Zohara, Aviv ben Vivi, Esther ben Alia, Simon ben Alia, Mazal bat Luna, Yitzhak ben Tzvia, Nisim ben Meir, Rachel bat Bela, Yaakov ben Tamar. Also to the Refuah Shelema of Amram ben Zohara, Lavi Rafael ben Olga, Daniel bat Mazal, and Miriam bat Pesi Penina. Also to Zivug Hagun, Mishor Nishmatam, to Inbal bat Jacqueline, bat Chen bat Jacqueline, Guy ben Dina, Sheina Henshi bat Lea Gittel, Yehudit bat Sarai Menu, Avigal bat Sarai Menu. Also this should be to the Beracha ve'Atzlacha of Abraham ben Daniel, Avraham ben Valiot Chaya, Yehuda Lev ben Tova Shindel, Desiree and Avia, Joseph Dornbush and the Dornbush family, Judah Mendel, and Dov, Shmuel, and Pesti Penina and family. And I also want to give a special emphasis to our good friend Yehudit Ben Shabbat, who's honoring her past husband's yortzeit tonight. His name is Avraham Yehoshua Ben Sultana. Be'ezrat Hashem, that all these divrei Torah, including the berachot that we make on the food, will be to his Ilui Nishmat. Also, tomorrow we're going to continue honoring him and giving an additional shiur on Chanukah, and that's going to be at the Yehudit Ben Shabbat residences, which is in Miami on around the 41st Street area. And all the information for that is posted on the groups, or Yehudit happens to be here tonight. If anybody wants to make a connection and come back and join us as we honor her husband, Ilui Nishmat Yortzeit, both tonight and tomorrow night. Also, Judah Mendel wanted to make an additional sponsorship. He's sponsoring tonight's class to have the great revelation and light and shefa of Chanukah come upon the Jewish people this Chanukah 5784. Okay, Be'ezrat Hashem, Naaseh v'Natzliach. Also, Amen. Before I want to give an honorable mention and a huge thank you to all the ladies in the house, to my good friend Josh Kerner that is now here with us, joining us for the first time in this venue. Aaron Silberman that's back after a couple of weeks, and of course all the regulars. We have Ronnie over here, the Bermans. We have Yael and her family, and all the add-ons. Shakira and her family. The list goes on and on. And of course, my good friend Gabriel, as well as Dov and Penina. Hashem Varech Otchem, Sameach Otchem. Thank you so much for coming here and learning. Now that I know that I have such unique and special people that come to the class, I have to give a good lesson. So I push myself even more in order to give a good lesson that not only is important to the PARASHAT Shavua, but a huge takeaway to our day-to-day life. And of course to Rani also, who's a faithful follower of the class. All right, let's get started. Amen. Sefer Bereshit is famously known to be Maaseh Avot Siman Lebanim. It's like a GPS, a navigation tool that the patriarchs have created through their life stories in order for us to have life lessons that we can extract life lessons from our day-to-day life. Avraham Avinu, he's famously known to be the patriarch that represents Chesed, Tzedakah, Kiruv. He's the one that was he spearheaded the whole movement of glorifying the name of God in the world, letting the world know that there's a creator. He was also the one that did a tremendous amount of kiruv, spreading the word of monotheism. And of course, he did that with acts of kindness and acts of charity with anyone that walked into his tent that was open from all four sides. And as a matter of fact, if we go to Perek Tet Vav in Sefer Bereshit, Pasuk Vav, there's a famous pasuk that all should know, that this pasuk represents every Jew, and it gives us our identity as Jews and as parents as well. It says in Perek Tet Vav, Pasuk Vav, about Avraham Avinu, Ve'emin b'Adonai vayechasheveh lo litzedakah. He says that Avraham Avinu emulated this gift of Ve'emin b'Hashem. He believed in God, he had faith in God, and Hashem considered him to be righteous because of that. Furthermore, if you go to Perek Yudchet, Pasuk Yutet, there's another famous pasuk that gives you a tremendous amount of self-identity once you learn it in depth. Pasuk Yutet says, "V'Avraham yeh legoy gadol v'atzum." He's going to be a great and mighty nation. V'nivrechu bo kol goy haaretz, and all the nations of the earth should be blessed because of him. Why? Next pasuk tells us, "Ki." Because, and by the way, anytime you see the word key in Hebrew, switch it to the English word key. It's a master key. I'm about to reveal to you a secret. Ki yedativ leman asher etzaveh et banav ve'et beto acharav v'shamru derech Adonai la'asot tzedakah mishpat leman hevi Adonai al Avraham et asher diber alav. He's saying over here, ki dativ, because I know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is now testifying on behalf of Avraham Avinu. Ki dativ, I know him. Leman asher etzaveh et banav et beto, that whatever, that I love him so much, whatever I command him, he will command onto his children and to his household after he passes. And once he passes on all the way of Avraham to his children, what will his children do? Veshamru derech Hashem. The children will keep the way of God. La'asot tzedakah u'mishpat. How do the children of Abraham continue in the way of God? They do charity and they perform justice. That's what we do as Jews. We do tzedakah and mishpat. And that's what Avraham Avinu brought into the world. Maaseh avot siman lebanim. The ways of the patriarchs was a sign of the times for the children to come. That's what Avraham Avinu brought to the table. Yitzhak Avinu, we know that he's famously known for Mesirut Nefesh. What's the Mesirut Nefesh? What was the self-sacrifice that he did? That he was willing to give his own life for the sake of heaven. And that in itself is the only lesson we need to learn from Yitzhak. Even though that there's so much more. But Yitzhak Avinu represents Mesirut Nefesh LaKadosh Baruch Hu. Self-sacrifice, total dedication. So much dedicated, willing to give his own life for Kadosh Baruch Hu. YAKOV Avinu, he's famously known to be Ish Tam Yoshev Ohalim. That he was a Torah learner, he was a good Jewish boy, a good Jewish man. He stayed in the tents, and all he did was learn Torah all the time. However, even though that these are the characteristic traits of characteristic traits of our patriarchs, I wanted to zoom in a little bit into the life of Yaakov. The life of Yaakov, as we see in the past few parashiyot, begin to unfold as a tough life, a very tough life, a difficult life. Meaning we think that the patriarchs, they're so righteous, they're so holy, their life should be perfect. But in reality, we see that some of their life is filled with problems. Yaakov Avinu, as a matter of fact, when he reflects back on his life, when he speaks to Paro in Perek Mem Zayin Pasuk Tet, he himself testifies. He tells him, Vayomer Paro el Yaakov. Paro, looking at Yaakov for the first time, he sees him, and he sees like a really old man in front of him. And he tells him, how how old are you? Meaning, imagine, so first of all, it's not derech eretz to ask somebody how old you are, especially women, if anybody doesn't know by now. But in general, you don't ask, especially old people. Maybe they'll be slighted by it. Maybe they'll get insulted by it. However, Yaakov Avinu looked so old that Paro had to ask. And Yaakov answers, Vayomer Yaakov el Paro, Yemei Shenei Megurai, 30 u'me'at shana. I'm 130 years old. Me'at v'ra'im hayu yemei shenei chayai. He says, I had a tough life. I suffered in my life. And why would he say that? Because Yaakov had to deal with his evil brother Esav that wanted to murder him. He had to live with a crooked father-in-law called Lavan, who not only cheated him over 100 times, but he was also more difficult to live with than Esav. He had to deal with his daughter Dinah being violated by Shem. He had to deal with Yosef being kidnapped and sold to the Ishmaelim at the age of 17 and not seeing him for over 20 years. And we see that all that produced a life that Yaakov Avinu himself said, "V'ra'im hayu yemei shenei chayai." They were bad years, difficult years. So when I take a look at Esav, Lavan, Dinah, Yosef, I look at those as the challenges that Yaakov was going through. But you know, challenges is one part of your life. The things that you go through is one part of your life. There's another part of your life. What are you living for? What was Yaakov living for? We know the stories. We know the problems that he was going through. But that's not what he was living for. That's something he had to put up with. But every single person in their life has to have a purpose. Something that they live for. What did Yaakov Avinu live for? What was his life's dedication? I'll give you 30 seconds to give me an answer. Let's see.
Kids. Go doing all these rounds. Kids.
Kids. Very good answer.
Torah.
Next. Torah. Very good answer.
Torah lifestyle.
Torah lifestyle. Very good.
Well, I guess kids to expand the nation.
Kids also. Very good.
To serve Hashem.
Serve Hashem. All good. So, when we think about Yaakov and we ask the questions of what did Yaakov live for, what was his life's dedication, I'd like to present to you tonight a dual pathway. 2 ways of an in-depth learning and understanding of what Yaakov Avinu lived for his entire life. And we know, just like the popular opinion in the room, he lived for his family. He was a family man. And obviously you want him to live for the family, because I think we said it in many lessons before, but I'll say it again. He finally achieved what from Adam HaRishon up until Yaakov Avinu was not achievable, which is what? Bnei Israel, to have the nation of Israel. It's not so simple how we got here. Keep in mind, from Adam HaRishon to Noah and the flood, where Hashem pressed reset on the whole world, was 10 generations. From Noah to Avraham Avinu was another 10 generations. Avraham Avinu was the first one to start promoting God in the world. And we had to have Avraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov as the patriarchs. And they themselves, even though that Avraham Avinu was the first Jew, we know that Avraham Avinu had a journey. Avraham had 2 children. He had Ishmael and Yitzhak. Ishmael is the psolet, Yitzhak is the ikar. Then we had Yitzhak. Yitzhak also had 2 children. He had Esav, which was the psolet, and he had Yaakov, which was the ikar. Yaakov comes into the picture and he has 12 perfect children. Bnei Israel are here. So obviously, once you've achieved this lofty goal of Bnei Israel, of course that the main focus in your life is going to be what? The children. The 2 most important things in the life of Yaakov, the 2 things that he dedicated himself his entire life, was family education and he was extremely careful not to fall to assimilation. I want to start from the beginning in order to give you a full picture on the pathway of education and the fight against assimilation, all through the life story of YAKOV AVINU. In Perek Chaf Pasuk Chaf Bet, the journey begins, the fight in the womb. In Perek Chaf Pasuk Chaf Bet, it says over there, "Vayitrodzetzu habanim bekirba." It says that there was a fight in the womb of Rivka Imenu. What was the fight about? What was the fight about?
When they passed the shul, Yaakov wanted to go out. When they passed the tumah, Yosef wanted to go out.
Beautiful. That is what Rivka was experiencing as a mother on the outside. But what was happening on the inside of the womb? What was the fight about? So Chazal tell us that they were fighting about the Yud. They were fighting over the letter Yud. Why? A deep Kabbalistic concept that can be explained very simply, but it's very deep, is that the world was created with words, with letters, right? Ba'asara ma'amarot nivra olam, right? So we know that you can create worlds, and the programming codes for creation are the Hebrew letters. So the Hebrew letters have power. Okay? Furthermore, it says in the Kabbalah that this world was created with the letter Hey, and the upper worlds were created with the letter Yud. What that means, I don't know. Ask your local Kabbalist. But for this lesson, all we need to know that Olam Haba is Yud, this world, Hey. Olam Hazeh, that is represented by the letter Hey, or this world in general, represents the physical realm. Olam Haba represents, what's represented by Yud, is the spiritual realm. So we know that when they started to fight, they were fighting for the Yud. Because the Yud represents the 10 berachot that Yitzchak Avinu was going to bless them. Keep in mind that if you go to Perek Chav Zayin, Pasuk Chav Chet, these berachot are ויתן לך אלוהים מטל השמיים, שמני הארץ, ורוב דגן ותירוש, יעבדוך עמים וישתחוו לך לאומים, הווה גביר לאחיך וישתחוו לך בני אמך, עורריך ארור וברכך ברוך. I'll read it in English. And may God give you of the dew of the heavens and the fatness of the earth and the abundant grain and wine. Peoples will serve you and regimes will prostrate themselves to you. Be a lord to your kinsmen, and your mother's sons will prostrate themselves to you. Cursed be they who curse you, and blessed be they who bless you. That beracha has 10 parts to it. In the womb they were fighting. What were they fighting about? One thing that they were fighting about is who's going to take the blessings of this world and who's going to take the blessings of Olam Haba. Now let's take a look at the names. What happens if we add a Yud to Esav? And what happens when we add a Yud to Yaakov? So it says that Esav, his name was actually with the Yud. He was supposed to get the 10 blessings. Why? Because he was a firstborn. And we know that the firstborn get the beracha from the father. He's a bechor. So if you put a Yud into Esav, what does his name become? Asui. What's Asui? Made, complete. And Chazal tell us, in the womb, he was already complete. He was Asui. He had hair, he had teeth. When he was born, as soon as he came out of the womb, he was already walking and talking. He was Asui. Yaakov wanted to take the Yud from Esav because he didn't want to be Ekev. He wanted to be Yaakov. He needed the Yud to be Yaakov. Otherwise his name would be Ekev, meaning the one that's always delayed and behind. Because Yaakov says, no, the Yud belongs to Olam Haba. I need the Yud. The Yud belongs to me. And not only that, but he also wanted the berachot of this world. So he says, but I also want the berachot of this world because I know how to uplift the physical through the spiritual, which is the whole essence of a Jew. The whole essence of a Jew is to take the physical realm and turn it into the spiritual realm. How do we do that? Something is physical, like these popcorners, right? I want to have this right now. I can just put it into my mouth, chew on it, and right now I stole from God. Why? Because I take food without a bracha. Or I can take this popcorn thing, say Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Mechalav Shakon Yem Dvaro, put it into my mouth, and I made a beracha. I release all the spiritual sparks that are in there. I can do bracha achrona, and now I turn the physical into spiritual. Same thing with money. I can go and make money, right? But what do? We want to make kosher money. And the type of money that we give to tzedakot and ma'asrot and all that, right? So there's two ways to make money. You can go out there and make money dishonestly, not care about certain laws and guidelines, or you can do it according to the laws and guidelines of the Torah, as well as be charitable, as well as tithing. So we see that we always have things that are physical and we can make spiritual. Also, man and woman, you can be together in a holy way or an unholy way. When you're married, everything gets holy. Whether everything is done through the purity of the Tarat HaMishpacha, that everything does by the laws of purity of the home, and also it's a mitzvah to procreate, Pirya V'Rivya, and not only that, it's over there. Now you become a whole. You're not just two separate entities. You become one, and all the brachot that come along with it, or the complete opposite. So we can see that the whole purpose of a Jew is to take the physical and elevate it through the spiritual. And that's what Yaakov knew he could do, and that's what Yaakov wanted to do, and they fought for the Yud. So from the beginning there was a fight in the womb for the Yud. A few years later, at the age of 15, we have Esav selling of the birthright for a bowl of soup. Why would that be? Why would Esav sell his quote-unquote beracha, the yud that he wanted, the blessings that he wanted from that he was fighting for the womb? How come he was forsaking them? He says, no, now I don't want them. Because he realized at the age of 15 that when you are Bechor, you're going to have the responsibility of working in Bet HaMikdash. In Bet HaMikdash, you have work to do. You have to be there in the morning, you have to chef, you have to clean up, you have all this work to do, you have to be holy. He says, leave me alone. Don't tell me about what I have to do tomorrow. I live for today. Today I'm hungry. Right now I want this lentil soup. Give it to me. And by the way, why is it a side note about the lentil soup? Is because that was the day that Avraham Avinu passed. And they were mourning his death. And one of the foods that we eat when we're mourning is lentil soup. Why? Because it's round, to show us that the world is round, the cycle of life. And a side note over here is that at this age, Yaakov and Esav were 15 years old. Which means that Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov lived together for a total of 15 years. So they had 15 years of living together and learning together, which is chut. Which, by the way, anybody who can activate that in their lives, they say, if you're able to learn grandfather, father, and son, it's a big segula. The Torah will never leave your progeny. The Torah will never leave your family. If you're able to learn Abba, Saba, and Neched all together, it's a big segula that the Torah never leaves that family. So if you have some people that are still alive and you can do that, please activate that.
Savta count?
Savta count? I didn't see nothing about Savta, but we'll give an honorable mention for Savta. Okay?
It's important, of course. 100% important.
Now, at age 15, the Torah reveals to us that Yaakov is Ish Tam Yoshev Halim. He's a good kid, he's a learned child, he sits in the tent, and all he does is learn Torah all day long. Which Torah? The Torah that he learned from his father, and the Torah that he learned from his grandfather. Ish Tam Yoshev Halim, at this very moment, is the education that he got from his father and from his grandfather. Esav is Ish Sadeh Tzayid Befiv. He says that he was a person that would go out to the field and hunt, and he also had the way with words. He was able to be very cunning and wily with people. So he was good at hunting and also good at fooling people. That's the age of 15. Fast forward to the age of 63. At the age of 63, Yitzchak finally decides to give the boys their blessings. And after that whole scenario of what happened over there with Yaakov and Esav, the result of Yitzchak wanting to give the blessings to his children, Yaakov runs away from Esav because he wants to kill him. And he is also instructed to go to Lavan to get married. So at the age of 63, Yaakov leaves his house for two things. One, his brother wants to kill him. Two, go find a wife. Go run away because your brother wants to kill you. That's his mother's instruction. Go and find yourself a wife. That's his father's instruction. He wants to do kibud avayim. That was 63. And he's on his way now to the house of Lavan. He gets there 14 years later, at the age of 77. It does not take 14 years to go to your uncle's house. What happened? Why did it take so long for Yaakov to go from his parents' house to his uncle's house? So it says over there that at the age of 77, which was a total of 14 years, he left his parents' house and he went to the yeshiva of Shem and Ever. And why would he go to the yeshiva of Shem and Ever? Higher learning, higher education. He needed to learn more. Why? Isn't it enough? He learned with Abraham. He learned with Yitzchak. He's Yaakov Ishtam Yoshev Ohalim. Why does he need more? Not only that, he's 63 years old. This is not the time you go to school. This is the time you get married. You're behind on getting married. Why do you need 14 more years? Well, it was by design. Because he went to the yeshiva of Shem and Ever. Who is Shem and Ever? Well, Shem and Ever is the world famous yeshiva. That first of all, Shem is the son of Noah. And both Shem and Ever were very unique individuals because they experienced two of the most wicked generations in the history of the world. They witnessed Dora Palaga and Dora Mabul. They saw the generation of the flood and all their evil ways. And then they also saw the generation of the disbursement. Dora Palaga, which is the Tower of Babylon, which both generations were generations of wicked individuals. And because they saw these different generations of different individuals and they lived through it, they said, we are able to give you the type of Torah on how to live amongst evil people. You're on the way to who? You're on the way to Lavan. Lavan is the biggest god of our times. How are you going to live with him? How are you going to be able to not only live with him, but survive with him? You have to learn the Torah that we have. The Torah that allowed us to live through Dora Mabul and Dora Palaga. Because not only they prepare Yaakov for life, but they prepare him on how to withstand living with the wicked. So 14 years, he leaves this house at 63. 14 years in the yeshiva of Shem and Ever, that's 77. Finally gets to Lavan, and what does he have to do over there? He has to work 7 years for his wife Rachel. So that means at the age of 84, he finally gets married. By the way, for those of you that are maybe a little bit confused, what happened when Leah got married? Well, right after the Sheva Brachot of Leah, 1 week later, they ran it through a second time, and Rachel got married to him again. So we had Rachel and Leah got married about a week apart. He didn't, well, some people think that he worked 7 years, then he waited another 7 years, and then, no. It happened then, and he had both his wife at the age of 84. He finally leaves the house of Lavan. So if we add 84 plus 7, 91 plus another 7, 98. Now, so 98 years old. So now, no, I'm sorry. 7 7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 6. So we have 84 plus 7 is 91 plus 6 is 97. He's 97 years old. He worked 7 years for Rachel, 7 years for Leah, 6 years for the sheep. At the age of 97, he finally decides to leave Lavan. My question to you is, why specifically after 20 years? Why not after 19? Why not after 15? Why not after 10? Why at one point he says, okay, now's the time. After 20 years of living with Lavan, he finally gets up and he leaves the house of Lavan. So in Perek Lamed, in Pasuk Vav and Zayin, it gives us the answer. It says over there,
Bereshit, yeah?
Yeah, Bereshit. It says over there, no, I wrote it wrong. Anyways, maybe Lamed Vav? No. It says over there that he takes his wife to the side. He knows that I work for your father, B'kol Kochi, and Ichlifet Maskuti, that he changed my salary so many times, and it's time for me to leave. However, above and beyond the fact that he treated him in a wrong way, and he was, he changed his money, and he was no longer looking at him the same way, something changed. And what changed is revealed to us in the Haftarah. If you guys paid attention to last week's Haftarah in Vayeshev, in Sefer Ovadia, in Pasuk, Perek Aleph, Pasuk Yudchet, something happened. You know why exactly after 20 years he decided to leave? It says in the Haftarah, V'haya bet Yaakov esh, ובית יוסף להבה, ובית עשיו לקש, ודלקו בהם ואכלום, ולא יהי שריד על בית עשיו, כי אדוני דיבר. The pasuk in the Haftarah says, and it was that the house of Jacob was fire, and the house of Joseph was a flame, and the house of Esav was like straw. What's stronger, fire or straw? Fire. Flame or straw? Flame. When Yosef was born, Yaakov said, I finally have the power to overpower my evil brother Esav. Up until now, Esav was a threat. But now that Yosef is in the world, now I can overpower Esav. Question is, what is so special about Yosef that now Yaakov has the confidence to face his evil brother Esav, who's been wanting to kill him for 20 years? What is it that Yosef had? It seems like Yosef was the antidote to Esav, that he can beat him. As a matter of fact, when Yosef was born, Yaakov knew he has someone to carry on the mission. You know what? It's actually something that I didn't write down over here, but I'm going to share it with you. In PARASHAT VAYESHEV, it says, אלה תולדות יעקב, יוסף בן 17 שנה, יורד לך בצאן. No, I'm sorry. So we have Yaakov, his son Yosef, who's 17 years old, and it says over here, וישראל אהב את יוסף מכל בניו, כי בן זקונים הוא לו. It says that Israel loved Yosef from all his boys, כי בן זקונים הוא לו. He's the youngest child for him. That's not true. Binyamin is the youngest. How can you call Yosef ben zekunim if Binyamin is ben zekunim? How does he get that title?
He took all his, chachamim way.
Beautiful. What is zaken? They say a zaken is not necessarily a senior citizen. Zaken is Rashi Tevot, Ze Kana Nun, Ze Kana Chokhmah. He acquired wisdom. When he says he's ben zekunim, he says, you know what he is? Who are the zakenim? Avraham is the zaken. Yitzhak is the zaken. Yaakov is the zaken. He says, this guy, he's like us. He's ben zekunim. He's the one that we can pass on all the knowledge that we have. We have a candidate that can be as holy as us when it comes to the learning. Don't get me wrong. All the tribes, all the 12 tribes, all the 11 tribes, they were all heroes. They were like X-Men, superheroes. Not there weren't any slouches at all. But Yosef was special. He was a ben zekunim. You can pass on to him the chokhmah, the wisdom that they had, the Torah that they had. And that's why he said, that's why Yaakov felt, now that I have someone like an avot, he's like one of the patriarchs. As a matter of fact, Paro calls Yosef what? Avrech. What's an avrech? Avrech is avrach. We know avrech as the common word, the Torah learner in the yeshiva, the young guys before they get married. But when you look at Rashi, when Yosef gets the title of avrech from Paro, Rashi tells us what's avrech? Av bechokhmah, rach beshanim. He's got wisdom like a mature father, but he's very young in years. Avrech. Av bechokhmah, rach beshanim. And that's what he was. And Yaakov noticed it in him, and he says to him, I'm going to pass. So as soon as he recognized that Yosef is in the world and he's special, he began to teach him the Torah that he learned in the yeshiva of Shem Ve'ever. When did he start learning with him? At the age of 3. How many years is the learning of the yeshiva of Shem and Ever? 14. 3 plus 14 is what? 17. At 17, his education was done. His life journey begins. He gets sold by his brothers to the Ishmaelim, and he gets sold as a slave to the house of Potiphar. And here he is in Mitzrayim. By design. Meaning he needed the 14 years of education from Yaakov, the education that was from Shem and Ever that taught a righteous individual how to live amongst the wicked. And once he had that under his belt, the wheels started to turn. Hashem already started to move the pawns and to create the Geulah of Am Yisrael for Yetziat Mitzrayim that's going to happen in 210 years from now. Now, if we put ourselves in the shoes of Yosef, the entire time that he's in Egypt, he has all the reasonings, he has every right to leave the ways of his home. Right? Number one, what? Nobody loves me. My family doesn't love me. Where's my family? I got 11 brothers and a sister. I have a father that I'm supposed to be his favorite. What's my family? Where's the love of my family? Not only that, he has 11 brothers that he looks up to, my older brothers. You know what they tell him? We hate you. Get out of here. Not only that, he is now the only Jew in Egypt. The only Jew in Egypt. And we know that the Gemara says, 10 kabin shel tumah yared la'olam, v'mitzrayim lekha tish'a. 9/10 of the tumah of the world is in one spot on the planet called Egypt. And that's where Yosef is, the only Jew over there. So you can imagine how much tumah is over there. And above and beyond that, he's extremely handsome. One of the most beautiful men to ever live. The Yofi of Yosef, they say they couldn't resist it. They said when he was walking in the street, the woman would be sitting by their house, and they'd be cutting the carrots for salad, and before they know, their fingers are in the salad also. They just kept going. They would take the trinkets from their side, because a trinket would be like the family heirloom or the family signet, and they'd throw it at him like, here, just come, I'm from a good family, come marry me. He wouldn't even pay attention. He wouldn't even lift up his eyes. It was extremely, and not only that, when he was sold to the house of Potiphar, Eshet Potiphar, one of the most beautiful women to ever live, would seduce him every single day. All those elements together, right now would say, Yosef, who cares about the old ways of the house of Yaakov? You are now in a new life. Nobody loves you, nobody cares for you, everybody hates you. You are now in a place of a sea of tumah. Everybody wants you. The most beautiful woman in the world wants you right now. That's it, go. What does he do? No. He stops himself from falling into assimilation. He stops himself from falling for the ta'avot. Why? Because every time he had a challenge, who comes up? His teacher, his Abba, Yaakov, the picture of Yaakov. No. Abba taught me 14 years how to be around these wicked people. I don't give up my relationship for Hashem, for nobody, and for no woman, and for no pleasure, and not for momentary fleeting pleasure. Every time. And as a matter of fact, it says that Eshet Potiphar would seduce him every single day. She would switch her outfits, her makeup, her hair, her perfume. She would threaten him. I'll kill you. I'll gouge your eyes out. I'll break your back. I'll put you in jail. He says, I'm not scared. Do whatever you want to do. I'm not giving up on my relationship with Kadosh Baruch Hu. I'm not giving up on my Jewish education. Do whatever you want to do. I'm in the hands of Hashem. And she threw him she threw him in jail. And wouldn't you know it, in jail she would still come with the outfits, with the haircut, with the perfume. Still, she would actually put a necklace on him, not a necklace on him, like a collar on him that had spikes sticking out. That if he goes down like this, he goes straight into his neck and he kills himself. Just so he keeps his eyes up and looks at her. Still, he put it down. Could you imagine what stopped him? What stopped him from falling into the Tum'ah society of Egypt and for the temptation and the persuasion of Eshet Potiphar? His father's education. And I have the chinuch me'aba, I have my relationship with Kadosh Baruch Hu, I'm not falling. So much as this Jewish education protected him, that when it came to Yetziat Mitzrayim was because of Jewish education. If I ask you right now, why do we have Yetziat Mitzrayim? You're going to tell me because of what? Because Moshe hid the water with the staff. Why was there Yetziat Mitzrayim? Why did the sea split?
Somebody walked in, right?
Nachshon ben Aminadav walked in. Yes. Who else?
The three merits that we
And,
had.
and Moshe kept his arms up with the...
Moshe with the staff. What else? Why did the sea split?
The three merits that we had, that's why we were...
They had the three merits that they didn't change their language, they didn't change their speech, they didn't change their clothing.
The faith that they had.
The sea split because of Yosef. Many other reasons. Be'ezat Hashem bli neder, when we get to Parashat Beshalach, I'll give you a full class why the sea split. Unbelievable. Why the sea split. So many beautiful midrashim over there. However, back to our story. Why did the sea split? Because of Yosef. Why?
They were carrying his bones.
Hayam nas mizeh nas. We say that in Vayanus in Hallel. What do we say in Hallel? Hayam ra'a vayanos. The sea what? What did the sea see? It saw the bones of Yosef. What does Yosef represent? When Eshet Potiphar came to assault him, to grab him, she grabbed his clothes. He ran away. In the merit that he ran away from Eshet Potiphar, the ocean ran away from the Jewish people. Hayam nas mizeh nas. Furthermore, the point here is about Jewish education. Every single day, right before Shirat Hayam, what do we say? Vayar Israel et hayad hagedola asher asa b'Mitzrayim vayiru am et Hashem v'yamin b'Hashem u'Moshe avdo. Right? Az Yashir Moshe u'bnei Israel. Right? So right before that, so we said the pshat, the simple interpretation of the pasuk is Vayar Israel, the Jewish people saw et hayad hagedola, God's glorious hand, the big hand, asher asa Hashem b'Mitzrayim, that Hashem did to the Egyptians. Vayiru ha'am et Hashem, and the people saw God. V'yamin b'Hashem, they believed in Hashem, u'Moshe avdo, and Moshe his servant. I'm going to give you an interpretation of this pasuk. You will never see this pasuk the same way again. It says Natan v'Yetziat Mitzrayim, the whole Pamalia Shel Shamayim was there. All the angels were witnesses to come see Yetziat Mitzrayim. But you know who also was there? Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov were there as well. They were also during the time of Yetziat Mitzrayim. Look what the pasuk says. Vayar Israel. Who's Israel? Yaakov. Yaakov is right now looking down at Yetziat Mitzrayim. Vayar Israel, he's looking. What is he seeing? He's seeing the bones of Yosef and the sea splitting because of the bones of Yosef. So what does he say? Vayar Israel et hayad hagedolah. What's hayad hagedolah? Yud Dalet, Yud is 10, Dalet is 4, the 14 years of education. He says, Vayar et hayad, the 14 years hagedolah. Wow, the 14 years of education that held Yosef at Tzaddik in Mitzrayim, in his merit, look how the sea splitting. Vayar Israel et hayad hagedolah. YAKOV AVINU Neshamayim is saying, look at the 14 years of education of Yosef, that in his merit, the sea splitting right now. You will never see that pasuk the same way again. Vayar Israel et hayad hagedolah asher asa Hashem b'Mitzrayim. Jewish education. Now, Yaakov saw that the chinuch of 14 years, that's the bones of Yosef are the ones that are the ones that caused the Kriyat Yam Suf. But you should know that even before, and not only exclusively to Yosef, Yaakov was concerned with the education of all his children. Where do we see that? We see that before moving to Mitzrayim, he commissions Yehuda in Perek Memvav, Pasuk Chavchet. It says, Ve'et Yehuda shalach lefanav el Yosef. Once he knew that Yaakov knew that he has to move to Egypt with the invitation of Yosef, he says, okay, I agree. Let's move to Mitzrayim. However, before I take the entire family into Mitzrayim, Yehuda, come over here. ואת יהודה שלח לפניו אל יוסף להורות לפניו גושנה ויבואו ארצה גושן. He says, Yehuda, before I go to this place called Goshen, go over there and take a look because I want to turn into Goshna. What's Goshna? He says, the name is called Goshen, but I want to put the hay in Goshen. I want to put God in Goshen. I want to put a yeshiva in Goshen. He says, before we go to Goshen, I want to turn into Goshna. Go Yehuda, make sure that there's a yeshiva, that we have first grade, second grade, third grade, we got kids, grandkids, great-grandkids, all of them need Jewish education. Before I move from here over there, make sure that I have a yeshiva. Make sure that I have a school for the children. ואת יהודה שלח לפניו להורות לפניו. What's להורות? We know that hora'ah means to teach. Just like the Torah is a book of hora'ot. He says, להורות לפניו גושנה. Go put the hay in Goshen. Which means what? He was always interested, focused, that there will always be Jewish education in the life of his children. Which, by the way, from here we learn also, when it's time to move, right? You know, in Florida it's so tricky because you can always get that beautiful mansion at such a good price where there's no Jews at all, right? You can get an 8-bedroom with a mega pool and a mansion, this and that, $2,600 of mortgage. What? That's like a 1-bedroom in Aventura. Yeah. But where is this? Oh, where is it? It's like you take the 75, Alligator Alley. You go to, behind the swamp, there's a new community. They opened up and it's beautiful, it's gorgeous over there. You know what? Unbelievable, what a deal. Okay. What about Shabbat? What about Hagim? Kosher supermarket? Mikveh? In the swamp, mikveh. Meaning, like Jewish life. Yaakov says, hey, wherever we go, there's a rule. Where's my shul? Where's my school? And where's my supermarket? You gotta have those three. That's how you know if your shul's within walking distance, if there's a Jewish school for your kids within driving distance, and you have a good supermarket for all the kosher food and the kosher meat, okay, that's a good move to move. That's a good, smart Jewish move, right? You don't just move because it's a good real estate deal. That's not the right way to go about things. So we see from here also, Yaakov teaches us, wait. Before I move somewhere, is there a Jewish school over there? No. Build one, Yehuda, put Hay in Goshen. Go put Hashem in Goshen. Turn into Goshen now. Furthermore, we see that Jewish education was the top priority for Yaakov. So let's go back. So let's stop here. We see that why did Yaakov get up and go after 20 years? Only when Yosef was born? Because he knew he could continue what? The education of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and pass on to him the education of Shem Ve'ever. He says, now I can leave. Because now the Jewish education is going to be instilled in my family, instilled inside the Jewish bloodline of Bnei Israel. So we see here, we stop how important it was for Yaakov and Jewish education. I want to go to the other pathway of Yaakov having a very, very strict rule of no assimilation, no itbolut, not to mix up amongst the people. Let's go back to that original question. Why is it that after the birth of Yosef, he was ready to leave Lavan? So we said, Bet Yaakov Esh, Bet Yosef Lehava, Vebet Esav Lekash. Because it seems like when the house of Jacob is fire, accompanied with the house of Yosef, which is like a flame, they're able to subdue and beat the house of Esav, which is like straw in front of fire. Let's drill down to understand this. What does Yosef represent in Judaism? He represents the Yesod, the protection of the Yesod, the protection of the Brit. At the age of 17, Yosef was at the peak of his beauty. 17-year-olds, their hormones are running wild. It's like such a crazy age to be in. It's like you're no longer a child or even a teenager. You're very close to being a man, and it's not so simple. So imagine being gorgeous like Yosef, the hormones of a 17-year-old, and it says about Yosef, Yosef, Yefet To'ar v'Yefet Mar'eh, and imagine being in this place called Mitzrayim, which is like Las Vegas to the billionth power when it comes to Tum'ah. And as an added challenge, put him in a castle with the wife, Eshet Potifar, which in last year's class, you remember, her name is Zolika. Beautiful class grade on Zolika last year. But imagine her, the Gemara says she was one of the most beautiful people to ever live also. She was very extremely pretty. It's making advances on him with the outfits, with the threads. And again, he could have said, I'm abandoned by my family, I'm hated by my brothers, I have no one to love, I'm alone, I'm lonely, I want to have my hormones, maybe I should. Not only that, I'm sanu, I'm hated. It's not like I got lost and I'm looking for my family. I got thrown out, I got sold, I'm hated by my family. And not only that, I'm the only Jew in Egypt. Who needs this? Nobody understands me. Maybe I shouldn't hold on to it. Maybe I should just be like everyone else. Not only that, look at this. I have the most beautiful woman in the world chasing me. Let me go for it. Let me forsake my upbringing. Just the way they have forsaken me. Meaning, if they don't want me, I don't want them either. Let me start a new life. He could have said all that. But what did Yaakov do? No. Any other person would have said yes on the first excuse that I gave. Not the 7th or 8th levels. He said no. Protecting the breed. Abba told me. My rabbi told me how important it is to protect the breed. They told me what happened in Dor Palaga. They told me what happened in Dor Dora Mabul. I'm not going to fall into that as well. I'm not going to create another door here in Mitzrayim. His withstanding this urge and not falling in the heart of Egypt. We said earlier on the Hayam Nas Mizeshenas, that even the sea split because of his merit, also gave an extremely amount. He gave a tremendous amount of koach Am Yisrael. He gave a tremendous amount of power to Am Yisrael to be able to withstand it when they're there. Because you have to understand, he is like an Av. We said Maaseh Avot Siman Lebanim. And Yosef is Avrech. He's like an Av. He's like a mini Av. So everything that the patriarchs did, they planted seeds that they put things into play that their children can benefit from. Yosef also did that. He says, by me withstanding this test here in Siyatum of Egypt, with Eshet Potiphar, when the Jewish people are going to be here, they're going to draw from my power and be able to withstand, to not fall into assimilation, and not to fall to promiscuity or improper relations in Egypt. And so it was. For 210 years that the Jewish people were in Egypt, they never intermarried. They never assimilated. As Pessi said earlier before, they kept on to their Shem, Livush, and Shem, Lashon, Malbush. They were Shalem. What's Shalem? They were complete. They never changed their name, they never changed their garb, and they never changed their language. And because of that, they stayed home. We only have one story of one lady, Shulamit Bat Divri. She's the one that got into a situation with one of the Egyptians that tricked her husband to tell him to go to work early in the morning, and he came into the tent and she thought it was him, whatever, crazy story. But imagine, 210 years, out of all the generations, the millions of people that are in Egypt, not one Jew assimilated. Why? Because of Yosef. Why? He protected his breed. He planted the seed that we have the power to withstand. In the biggest level of Tum'ah, you could withstand it. Why? Because Yosef did it. And we're able to draw from him. He's the one that gives the power not to deteriorate and not to assimilate in the land of Israel. In the land of Egypt. Never fall to Arayot. So the strength of Yosef is protecting the Yesod. And that's why they give him the title of Tzaddik. And because of that, he had the power of the Koach Neged Esav. Remember, what gave Yaakov the confidence to get up and go and face his evil brother? Because what did Esav represent? Esav is Edom. Esav is Amalek. They were all about not protecting the breed. And they always wanted the Jewish people to fail in the Yesod. However, Yosef was the complete opposite. Yosef was the complete opposite of that. Yosef was all about protecting the Yesod. And this is why it was the utmost importance of Yaakov. No assimilation. How could it be there's no assimilation? He says, because I have Yosef. Yosef is going to be my power that I can go out into the world and we're not going to intermarry. We're not going to assimilate. And even though that Esav is all about intermarriage, first he went for the daughters of Ishmael, then the daughters of Midian. Oh, he went to all these different places. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Yaakov says, no. I have now Yosef. I can withstand. I can go against Esav. He nullifies him. In order to crystallize the learning of no assimilation between Yaakov and Esav, let's go back to the beginning again. Remember in Perek Chafei Pasuk Chav Gimel, it says, "Vaytrotzetzu habanim bekirba." Right? In the womb they were fighting, and when she went to, it said that she went to the yeshiva of Shem, and he tells her, "Shnei goyim bevitnech." Oh no, you have two nations in your belly. Shnei leumim mimayech iparedu. He tells her, you got twins. They're going to be two different entities. They're going to be two different nations, two different leumim. And from the time that they're born, iparedu. They have to be completely separate from one another. They can't be together. They have to be separated. Two nations must be separate. From the time that they were in the belly, Yaakov and Esav cannot be together. And we know that after Bizat HaBechorah and Birkat Yitzchak and Chazarat Yaakov Lipagesh Im Esav, meaning after the whole history, after the womb of Yaakov purchasing the birthright, getting the beracha from his father Yitzchak, and coming back to meet with Esav, at that very moment when Yaakov meets his twin brother Esav, who does he have? He has 11 boys and 1 girl. He has 11 boys, only 1 is not born. That's Binyamin. He's the last one. He's not born yet. And he has 1 girl named Dinah. Dinah was put in a box. When there was the whole meetup of Yaakov and his family, and Esav and his 400 generals, Yaakov is presenting his family, and each wife and the children presented themselves and bowed down. Dinah was in a box. He didn't introduce Dinah to Esav. And by the way, he got punished for that. That's why what happened to her in Shechem is because of that. Because he introduced Dinah to Esav, then no worry, Shechem is going to take her instead. What was the problem over there? It seems like Yaakov did a mistake by not introducing Dinah to his brother. Why? Yaakov says, I have Dinah. She is the first Beis Yaakov girl, right? You see, he's Yaakov, Bet Yaakov, Beis Yaakov girl. I'm teaching her all the things. She knows kashrut. She wears her heart, her hair is in a tzama. She's a good Jewish girl. Now, and she's very pretty. We said she's one of the most beautiful girls. That's why Shechem was so impressed with her look. Comes Esav, picture him with a Harley, big cigar, smelling like leather and whiskey, big wild hair, tattoos everywhere, right? You know that it says that Esav had a tattoo of a snake on his yerech.
What's yerech?
On his leg, on his thigh. Comes, he sees Dinah, and he says, "Hey, Yaakov, give me your daughter." What would you do? Would you do it? Would you give your Beis Yaakov girl Dinah to your evil twin brother that is Esav? Would you do it?
No.
She's engaged.
Huh?
No. Says she's engaged.
No.
Look, I'm asking you as a father. You have a beautiful, sweet, young girl. Would you give it to a thug, to a mafiosa, to a murderer, to a killer, to a con artist? Chas v'shulam. Okay. Okay. Yaakov says, same thing. No way, Jose. No assimilation. Jewish girls, Bet Yaakov, don't go with the house of Esav. Why? Yaakov made a decision. He says, my daughter, Dinah, is not going to meet Esav. Why? Because if there's a chance that my daughter is going to live in the house of Esav, which basically means assimilation, hitbolelut, I don't want it. He's drawing the line over here. Later on, he got punished for it. Why did he get punished for it? Because we have to go back a couple parashiot back to Leah. Leah was the zivug of Esav, like we said. Hagadol, lagdola, v'akatan, naktana. We said that they were supposed to have, since Rivka had twins and her brother Lavan had twins, it was very well known that they were going to marry within the family, and the bigs were going to marry, and the smalls were going to marry. But Leah so didn't want to marry the convict, the wicked, the Esav, that she cried and she cried and she said, no Esav, I want the righteous Yaakov. And not only that, the problem with that is that Leah had the power to actually do what? To make Esav better. Leah had the power, just to show you the power of a woman, the power of a woman, she has the power. Leah had the power to take the wicked Esav and make him a tzaddik.
Leah or Dinah?
Leah. Now since Leah prayed so hard, correct. Once Leah prayed so hard and she went to Yaakov, there was a round 2. Hashem says, okay, no problem. I have Dinah. And it says, why do we know that Dinah had the same power as Leah? because they called Dinah Yatzanit, but Yatzanit. Just like her mother was a Yatzanit, she is like her mother, Yatzanit. Just like Leah went out to Yaakov and told him, hey, I got you for the night. Also, Dinah went out and she says, oh, I want to take a look at the women of the city. They both had that attribute of Yatzanit, which means Yatzanit that she goes out from the tent. She goes out from the tent. Similarly, we see that just like she had the same quality as her mother, she also had the quality to do what? Dinah was able to convert Esav to be a tzaddik as well. Yaakov caused it to hold him back. So even though he says no assimilation, I'm protecting my daughter, but because she had the power to do Esav, you could have done the tikkun. Esav could have taken the sparks from the deepest level of Tumah and brought them out, and they said that Esav had the power to be Mashiach. Because he knew how to go out to Tem'ah and to bring those nitzotzot out. So because of that, okay, so Esav is not going to, what happened? She got violated by Shechem. That was her punishment for that. Now, what was the result of the encounter? What was the result of the encounter between Esav and Yaakov? Or the encounter of Yaakov and Esav, and what happened with Dinah, since she put her Dinah in a box. In Perek Lamed Gimel, Pasuk Yud Dalet, I think it's this week's parasha. Oh no, it's last week's parasha. It says, after they meet, and he gives them the presents, and they have the conversation. We're good. We're in peace now. יעבור נא אדוני לפני עבדו, ואני אתנהלה לאיתי לרגל המלאכה אשר לפניי, ולרגל הילדים עד אשר יבוא אדוני השעירה. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me read one pasuk before. It says, Esav approaches Yaakov, and he tells him, Vayomer, Nis'a v'nelecha v'elcha lenegdecha. Let's go together. That's it. I no longer want to kill you. I love you. You're my brother. Let's open up a business. Let's open up a neighborhood. Start to live together. Open up a community. Let's unite. What happens? Yaakov answer him. Vayomer elav Adoni yodea ki hayladim rakim. He says, the children, they're weak. V'atzon v'abakar alot alai, and have the responsibility.
It's not mine.
Just press the buttons. The sheep and the goats, their responsibility is upon me. I have to take care of them. If I don't tend to them the entire day, they're going to die. So I have the kids and I have the flock, and I'm focused. I can't let them go because death, danger. The kids might die, the flock might die. Ya'avor na adoni lifnei avdo, go ahead of me. V'ani, you know what I'm going to do? Et nahala leiti, I will manage myself slowly. Leregel hamelacha, so I'll be successful at my job. Leregel hayladim, would have to take care of the children. Ad asher yavo elav bnei seira, and I'll catch up to you. I'll get there. When I get to Seira, I'll catch up to you and I'll meet you there. What's interesting about this answer that Yaakov gave? He says, Et nahela iti leregel hamelacha. In other words, he's telling him in very, very politically correct, nice words, no living with Esav. The children of Yaakov don't live with Esav. Why? It's a bad environment. It's a bad personal example from their uncle. You don't put yourself in a place of danger. And they went separate ways. Why? He said he wanted to prevent assimilation. Yaakov said, thank you for the invitation. Even though you're family, even though you're my brother, but my children around you, it's a downfall. There's no way I want my children around people like you. First thing first, Yaakov here shows for the second time. First time was with Dinah. Second time now over here, when he meets Yaakov, no assimilation, no connection to Esav. I want zero connection to Esav. What happened with Dinah? Dinah was violated by Shechem. And when her brothers heard about this, in Perek Lamed Gimel Pasuk Zayin, it says over there, no, it's not Lamed Gimel, Lamed Dalet. It says, Ubnei Yaakov ba'u min hasadeh, when the children of Yaakov came from the field, Keshamam ve'yitatzevu anashim b'char lehem mod. They got very saddened and they were very angry. Why? Ki nevela asa be'Israel. He committed an outrage in Israel. Lishkav et bet Yaakov, to be lying with the daughter of Jacob. V'chen lo yaseh. Such a thing may not be done. So what happened? Yaakov said, I don't want assimilation with Esav. What happened with Shem? Forced assimilation. Now you're in a situation, that's it. She's pregnant. What are you going to do? Shem is the father. You are the father. You know that show? Shem is the father. Okay, so what happens? Now you're forced assimilation. How do you deal with that? Look what happened to Yaakov. No assimilation, no Esav, no Yaakov. The education, always separating. All of a sudden he's faced with this challenge. The one thing that he lives for, the one thing that he's protecting his family for, happens to him, bekoach. So Levi and Shimon were so upset. If you remember last week's parasha, they killed all 24,000. And they wanted to, because, why was it? Because they wanted to dilute the progeny of Yaakov. Because if you read the Pesukim between Gimel, between Zayin and Yud Bet, if you see the reasoning of Hamor talking to his people, I'll read just a few lines. Vaydaber Hamor itam lemor. Shechem beni chashkan asho bivitchem. My son Shechem likes your daughter. Give it to him as a wife. And he says furthermore, Vitchatnu itanu, marry us. Benotchem titnu lanu, give us your daughters. Vet benotenu tikhu lachem, and take our daughters. Notice how they want our daughters and they're willing to give their daughters. You know why? This is very, very important to show us the power of a woman. The woman has a very, very strong influence on the spirituality of the home. If they take the woman from Am Yisrael, they're going to corrupt them. If they give them the woman from Shechem, what they're going to do? They're going to dilute them. Notice, if anybody knows, lo aleinu v'lo alechem, any of your friends or family, anyone that got married to a Goya, you come around Chanukah time, wow, it's a split personality. Hanukkah bush or menorah tree, what do we do? They don't even know anymore.
The House of Lights.
The House of Lights, right? The Festival of Lights. You get confused. What happened? Because the guy bends to the wife, right? He doesn't go to shul. She won't go to shul, but he'll go to the place, for the one time a year, because it's easy one time a year versus 52 Shabbatot, right? It's always the easier one. So it says over here, "Vitchatutnan benotchem, vitmanu benotenu." Yeah, be careful. The woman's very strong, both on the spiritual side and on the dark side. And it says, "Ve'omer Shechem el Avia." Well, let's skip that for right now. Their reaction to the forced assimilation, they killed them. You know what was the end result of Dinah? Dinah was Snu'ah bebet Yaakov. Dinah became hated. Why? Because when they saw the daughter of Dinah, what was her name? Osnat. Osnat is the daughter of Dinah and Shechem. And she was an eyesore to them. Every time they would see Osnat, it would remind them that Dinah was violated by Shechem, and that's the product of it. So what they do, they said, wow, we can't see her in the house. They couldn't stand her, they despised her. Yaakov, seeing this, what did he do? He wrote a kamiyah. He wrote a little piece of paper that he put on a necklace for her that said over there, Ani Osnat, Bat Dinah mi Bet Yaakov. Says, I am Osnat, the daughter of Dinah from the house of Yaakov. And he put it for her in a kamiyah over here, and he sent her to Mitzrayim. So you have Osnat, who is hated. She's the daughter of Dinah, who's also hated. And she's the daughter of Leah, who's also hated. She's also Snu'ah. Snu'ah, but Snu'ah, but Snu'ah. There's a trend over here. And she was adopted by the house of Potiphar. And she was married in Mitzrayim to the only Jew of all Mitzrayim.
The king.
Who was it? Yosef. Which, by the way, he was also son of Ben Echav. He was also hated by his brothers. So look at the match made in heaven. Leah was the wife that was Snu'ah. Dinah was Snu'ah because what happened to her in Shechem? Her daughter Osnat, even her name Osnat comes from the word Soneh. She was hated because she was an eyesore. And who does she marry? Yosef, who was hated by her brothers. And not only that, she was the only Jewish girl in Egypt. He was the only Jewish boy in Egypt. And Shidduchim, it's Mishamayim. We see that the Hashem makes a Shidduchim. Only he could take two Jews in Egypt and puts them together. As a matter of fact, it says that she threw her thing also. And when he caught it, he opens it up and he says, my name is Osnat, from the house, the daughter of Dinah, from the house of Yaakov. He's like, what? And all of a sudden, and by the way, where is she? She's the adopted daughter of Potiphar, which is also who? The one who bought him as a slave. What's the chances that everything ends? When Hashem wants to make things happen, He'll put everything together that you can find your zivug. By the way, Yosef, why did he merit to this perfect thing where Hashem brings the only Jewish girl in Egypt to come and be his zivug? You know that Yosef was also very, very close to falling in Potiphar. It says that in Perek Lametet Pasuk Zayin, he almost failed. It says, Perek Lametet Pasuk Zayin. Here it is. Here. It says, ויהי אחר הדברים האלה, ותישא את אשת אדמה ותנה ליוסף, ותאמר שכבה עמי. So, no, here. She comes to him, she makes her advances in him, she wants him to lie with her. וימאן. And he refuses. ויהי כי דיברה יוסף יום יום ולא שמע עליה, and she's making advances day after day and he doesn't listen to her. לשכב אצלה להיות עמה, to lay down with her and to be with her. She even told him, well, we won't do anything, just lie down with me. Just lie down with me, what a snake. ויהי כהיום הזה, ויבוא הביתה לעשות מלאכתו. ואין איש מאנשי הבית שם בבית. There was one day that there was nobody in the house. It was one time a year. It was a holiday in Egypt. It was the day that the Nilus would rise up. And the Nilus is their Avodah Zarah. They worshipped it. So on the Nile. So when the Nile would rise up on that day, it was a national holiday. And everybody would go over there and bow down to this thing because it was their source of sustenance. It's in Egypt there's no rain. All the water that they get is from the Nilus. So on that day, since everybody was gone, she stayed behind. And he's not going to go because he doesn't worship Avodah Zarah. He's Yehudi. So she stayed with him over there. It says, "Vayavo habayta la'asot melachato." So it says that he came to do his work. Rashi says, from the Gemara, it says, Rav Shmuel, Chad amar melachto mamash. He says there's an opinion from Rav Shmuel that he really came to do his work. He had some sort of work that he had to do. V'chad amar la'asot tzarchav ima. When it says, ba la'asot melacha, he actually came to make them do the melacha, to actually do to be with her. But meanwhile, he held back. He didn't do his melacha. He was able to withstand the temptation. Remember what Yaakov said? Et alech iti leregel ha-melacha. He says, what am I going to do? I'm going to manage myself slowly, give the right education to my children. Why? L'regel ha-melacha, because when they're going to come and get tested with the melacha, la'asot tzerachav, in an inappropriate way, they're going to have the right thing. What? Yaakov, his eye, his face pops up and he says, no. My Abba, my education, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I don't give any of that for you. Which here's what we said last week. Et nahala iti, which is I'm going to manage myself slowly, then that's slow and steady. I will teach my children to be safe from these tests. The education of our children, sometimes we load them information. Sometimes, a little bit of time, you get the job done. As a matter of fact, that's why when we lived in Egypt, we lived in a separate section called Goshna. Why did Yaakov agree to go to, not to Mitzrayim, but to Goshna? Because it was the Jewish ghetto. We're separate. We're not going to be with them. No assimilation. Even though that they fell to the 49 levels of Tum'ah, even though that they went to the lowest level of Tum'ah, but keep in mind, there was no assimilation. Look at you have to find like a Kaf Zchut Am Yisrael. Imagine 49 levels of Tum'ah, Tesha Kabir Shel Tum'ah in Mitzrayim, all the Zima that's going around, and they don't fall for it. Later on, we see that Am Yisrael had a direct attack by Bilam. What was the Etzad Bilam? Remember when the Jewish people were in the desert and Balak and Bilam wanted to attack the Jewish people and they couldn't do it. They tried to curse, they tried to do war, all this didn't work. Bilam says, we can't win them, but I can give you advice. I can give you advice on how to be the Jewish people. He says, bring the Bnot Moab, right? I'm sorry, Bnot Midian. And it says over there, Elokim shel ele soneh zima. He says, there's one thing that I know about the Jewish God, is that he can't stand promiscuity. He can't stand improper relations. He can't stand znut. Take the girls out there, let them entice them. If they fail, that's their downfall. Because the Jewish people, one of the things that they protected themselves against is assimilation. If you can crack them over there, that's how they fall. Bilam knew, and he cracked the iron fence of Yaakov Avinu. As a matter of fact, if we go to Sefer Devarim, Perek Zayin, Pasuk Aleph through Vav. Look what it says over there. This is in Mishneh Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu warns us about assimilation. Ki yeviecha Hashem Elokecha el haaretz. When Hashem brings you to the land, lerishta, to inherit it, v'nashal goyim rabim, and you're going to see a lot of Gentile nations. And he names them: Chiti, Gigashi, Amori, Kenani, Prizi, Chivi, Yevusi. Untanam Hashem Elokecha lefanecha v'kitam. Hashem is going to give them in your hand. You're going to win them. You're going to fight them, and you're going to win. He says that you should destroy them, you should not make a covenant with them, and you should not show them any favor. And here is the straight out warning against assimilation from Moshe Rabbeinu. Velo titchaten bam. Don't intermarry. Bitecha lo titen livno. Your daughter don't give to his son. Uvito lo tikach levincha, and his daughter don't take on to your son. Notice it's always about the giving of the wife, giving the daughter, us taking their daughters and us taking their daughters, because the women have so much power with spirituality known. Because what happens? What happens if a Jew marries a Gentile? Ki yasir et bincha ma'acharai. They will remove your son from following my ways. V'avdu Elohim acharim, and they're going to worship other gods. V'charaf Hashem bachem, and Hashem is going to get angry because of that. V'yishmidecha maher, and he's going to annihilate you quickly. Look how dangerous assimilation is. Look what Yaakov was so worried about. Why he didn't want it to happen, because assimilation is a deterioration of Am Yisrael. We lose connection with God, and Hashem gets angry quickly, and annihilation follows. I want to stop right here and ask a question. Let's take tonight's learning and plug it into today's world, right? We spoke about Jewish education and we spoke about assimilation. I want to give you some statistics about assimilation in the United States. I think in the Tefillah class we did it about 5 or 6 weeks ago. An interesting stat that I saw. In the United States, this is the percentage of Jews and the details of it. 9% of the American Jews, 9% of American Jews are Orthodox.
That's all?
That's all. 17% conservative. 37% Reform. 32% unaffiliated. And 4% confused. Do you understand these numbers? Meaning the people that are religious, Shomrei Shabbat, Kashrut, learning Torah, Baalei Tshuva, 9% in America. All the rest are different sects or variations of made-up versions of, you know what Hidbolelut we are on the highest level. You know what assimilation we are? Like I said, I don't like to repeat the statistics, but up until before the war, we knew that 80% of the Jews in the world, a total of 14 million, 80% of the Jews are secular, not religious, and anything else that is beneath that. And only 20% of the Jews are religious, Orthodox, affiliated, connected, Shomrei Shabbat, Kashrut, Mitchaskim, Baalei Tshuva. I'd like to think that ever since the war, maybe things have shifted. Maybe we're at 25, 30%, 40, whatever. Maybe we married to 100, okay? But regardless, the ratio is huge. It's 1 to 5. Exactly like and what's scary is the Nevuah. It says, what do we say in the Musaf al-Shabbat? Hengalti etchem acharit kereshit. He says, I'm gonna when the redemption comes in the future, it's going to be like the same one in the beginning. What happened in the beginning? How was the first redemption, the first Geulah? 80% of the Jews died in Makat Hoshech. That's the 80%. What are we now? We're also at 80% of spiritual darkness, people that are spiritual darkness. So Mashiach comes right now, we have the same thing, Acharit Kereshit, 80-20. And we see in America, that's a crazy number. I couldn't believe it. And by the way, it's from 2021. So it's not that far away, this stat. 9% Orthodox. You think it's so much more. But you don't know how many Jews are living in America like Gentiles, disconnected, or, Reform conservative. And, Reform conservative, it's mamash. It's nothing close. It's a shell of what Judaism is. Because the one thing that we hold on to, which is kashrut and Shabbat and all those things, like the bare minimums of orthodoxy, is not even close to what they're keeping. So we see that assimilation is the silent killer of the Jewish people. You come to America for a better life. You come to America to make some money. You come to America to visit some aunts and some uncles. Before you know it, you got a Christina at home, a Maria at home, and all of a sudden your children are not going to Jewish schools. You're not going to shul. 20 years later, you have Thanksgiving and your favorite football team. Where's your tefillin? Where's your Rosh Hashanah? Where's your Kippur? What does your Hanukkah look like in your house? What happened? When you give an answer, they don't have words. They have sounds. What? You flushed your life down the toilet. There you go. From Moshe Rabbeinu, he passed it on to Yoshua to Skenim to Nevi'im, all the way down to your great-grandfather, to your grandfather, to your father. Your father passes you the ball. Here, my son, continue being a Jew. You come to America, you drop the ball. You go up to the Shammai, and you see the whole line of Jews looking at you and like, what happened? We kept it going for thousands of years. You dropped the ball? Makala. Everything okay? What happened? I found a business in Cincinnati. There was no shul. Then I met Kimberly and...
Money talks.
And they're looking at you. You understand? So...
What is the answer?
So we'll get to it. So we see this thing of that we're facing extinction. Not, like the numbers today are scary, but they were even scarier in the story of Hanukkah. That's when we were really, 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 really close to extinction. He says, "Ikar yitzonam shel Yevanim." The main thing that the Yevanim wanted, levatel me'am Yisrael midat Yosef HaTzadik. The Yevanim, Chanukah, it's around the corner. You know what they wanted to do? They wanted to nullify, they wanted to extract from the Jewish nation the quality of Yosef HaTzadik, which is what? Shemirat HaYesod, the protection of the Brit. I'm not going to continue on that, I'm just going to wrap it up. In the merit of Yosef, and the merit of protecting of the Brit, we get saved from assimilation. I said this before, I'll say it again, it's worth mentioning here as we conclude this class. Yeah. In Pesach, there's one of the cups that we pick up of wine. We pick up a glass of wine and we say, Ve'i she'amda lavotenu velanu שבכל דור ודור עומדים עלינו לכלותנו והקדוש ברוך הוא מצילנו מידיו. We pick up a glass of wine and we say והיא שעמדה. This is what stood for us. That in every generation עומדים עלינו לכלותנו, every generation they stand to annihilate us, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu saves us from their hands. What is it? What's going on over here? Why do we pick up a glass of wine and say that? The halacha is that you're not allowed to break bread and drink wine with a Gentile. Why? When you break bread and drink wine with a Gentile, it creates closeness. When you create closeness, what happens? You feel that you want to give them your daughter, and you want to take their daughter for your son. Imagine your next door neighbor, hey Phil, why don't you come over for Friday night dinner? Oh, sure. They come, they eat all the mat'amim of Shabbat, and they drink the wine, and you're vibing and you're connecting. The next day, what does he tell you? Come to watch the football game by me. And you're drinking and you're eating this and that. Before you know it, 5 years pass. Shlomi, grows up. Virginia grows up. You know what? Maybe we can be together. Okay. All of a sudden, that's what happens because you like him. He's a great guy. And you get close. When you break bread and drink, you get close. You should know that. That's why it's good couples that are married to go on date night and eat and drink together. The eating and drinking brings people close. Also, if you have like some sort of an issue, like in the house, invite your wife to talk over a cup of tea. When you guys have something, when you share like a... Not hot, cold, whatever it is. You drink it, it's good. It brings closeness. Drinking together, eating together brings closeness. So on the Gentiles, we don't do it. So that's what we say. When we pick up the cup, we say, Vehi shamda lavoten. This glass of wine that we're not allowed to drink with the Gentiles. Hi shamda lanu valavotenu. That we didn't assimilate. That's why we're still here. That's why I'm still here reading the Haggadah 1,000 years later, 2,000 years later. Because of this glass of wine that I don't drink with the Goyim. Hi shamda lavotenu. No assimilation. YAKOV Avinu's life work was Jewish education and no assimilation. We started the class saying, what does YAKOV Avinu live for? You know what he lived for? Jewish education. He taught his children how to live in the diaspora. He taught them how to live amongst wicked people. Im Lavan garti v'taryag mitzvot shamarti. He knew how to be in that environment and teach his children to be successful in that environment. Who taught him that? Shem and Ever, that was in the depths of those generations, and they passed it on. Et hayad gedolah, v'yar Yisrael et hayad gedolah. You saw the power of 14 years of education, and of course, the no assimilation. So, if the most important thing for Yaakov's life's work was Jewish education and no assimilation, you should know what's the number one thing that we need to do as soon as we get out from here. What's the call to action? Now that we understand the importance, now that we saw it through the lens of YAKOV Avinu, what am I doing? Number one thing is education. Knowledge is power. If you have no knowledge, if you have no history, if you have no Torah, then you're clueless to your ways. There's a lot of Jews, you know why they're going the ways of the Gentile? Because they don't have somebody that sat them down and taught them their heritage. Nobody taught them what's the right way, what's the wrong way. TV raised them. The internet raised them. Their telephone raised them. Their parents were busy. Were busy either earning a living or not caring, whatever it is. But because of that, they don't have the education. They don't have the knowledge. They don't have the heritage that was passed down to them. They don't have the ball that Moshe Rabbeinu passed down to us, passed down over to them. Their father dropped the ball. We have children now picking up the ball that parents dropped. Baruch Hashem, in the Teshuvah season, in the Teshuvah movement. But when a person is clueless, they don't even know that they're wrong. A lot of the people that are now in assimilation, they don't really think that they're wrong. They think they're doing good. What am I doing? I'm a good guy.
Ignorance.
I walk old ladies across the street. I don't murder. I don't steal. I give charity. I'm a good guy. But they do it because they think they're good. They're not doing it because the Torah said so. It's a totally different approach. You go up to the Shamayim, it doesn't count the same way. Because you followed your Torah. You didn't follow God's Torah. You thought it was good. Not because God told you to do it. For people, everything seems okay in today's norms. But when today's norms are deteriorating, it's very, very dangerous, especially for Jews. Without education, there's no a Jewish state of mind. There's no Jewish identity, and there's no connection to the heritage, and there's no connection to Yaakov's values. That's what it is. If you don't have the education, if you don't learn about your religion, if you don't learn about the Torah, you will never have those values. You will never have those values. You'll think that being Jewish is ... whatever the internet teaches you. Wherever you get your information from. So we must educate our children to be God-fearing Jews, right? We must teach Torah, we must teach them halakha, tradition, Jewish pride. This is very important. Very important that you do your work as a parent, that you teach the children the right way, that you pass on the masoret. That is your job. They say that Maaseh Avot Siman Lebanim, right? He says that you have to teach the children the cornerstone, Even Apina, the cornerstone of their education. What's Even? Even is Abba Ben Neched. It's all connected. Abba has to have a son, and the son has to have a child also. That are constantly learning from each other. Can't drop the ball. Otherwise, whatever Goy society they live in will swallow them alive. You won't be able to recognize them as a Jew. I read an article from Alan Dershowitz. He's a New York, very famous attorney. He has a New York Times article. And Alan Dershowitz stressed the importance of Jewish education in the diaspora. Listen to what he says. Unbelievable line from Alan Dershowitz. He says, more important than having a Jewish state is having a Jewish state of mind. He says, more important than having a Jewish state is having a Jewish state of mind. He says, what good is it that we have a state of Israel if we don't have Jews acting like Jews? Genius. I loved that quote from me. That was really, really something good. Bezat Hashem, that we merit to chinuch b'derech Hashem.
Amen.
That we get close to Hashem and His Torah.
Amen.
And to protect our children from assimilation in the galut that we're in. And that we follow the way of Yaakov, which is no assimilation and Jewish education. And just that's what he lived for. Also know that we have that as a goal, but we also have all the tools to deal with everything else around it. Why am I saying that? Because sometimes life's challenges cause people to not educate their children and not to care about the assimilation. I need parnasa. I live over here. Deal with the challenges and still educate your children and still make sure they don't get assimilated. Hashem v'yech atzchem v'sameach atzchem, may we merit.
Amen.
Unto the ways of